Malcolm Turnbull kept us all waiting longer than the crowd at a Madonna concert, but he's finally made the first bold move of his prime ministership.
The time for playing games is over. Today, I called upon His Excellency the Governor-General to advise him to recall both Houses of Parliament on April 18 to consider and pass the Australian Building and Construction Commission bills and the Registered Organisation Bill. If the Senate fails to pass these laws, I will advise the Governor-General to dissolve both Houses of Parliament and issue writs for an election.
Yes! He may have caved on the GST, super concessions, negative gearing, safe schools, capital gains, marriage equality and carbon pricing. But when it comes to obscure construction industry regulation, Malcolm Turnbull will not be moved. He is a rock with tiny little wheels on a slope, able to go at any given time. But why threaten a double dissolution over the construction industry regulator? Let's ask Australia's best retail politician, Barnaby Joyce.
One of the metaphors of where we are going as a nation are cranes on the skyline. It's incredibly important for the mum and dad operators who are trying to get their concrete onto a site, trying to get their bricks onto a site.
Barnaby Joyce there, pitching for the niche demographic mum and dad crane operators. Honey, I'm just going to pick up the kids from school. Hey, I tell you what, let's have an early dinner and lower them into bed, huh? If the crossbenchers pass the legislation, Turnbull gets his policy. And if not, there's a double dissolution and he gets a new Senate. It is the perfect plan. But senators are questioning his strong-arm tactics in dragging them back to sit for 3 weeks.
I will not be blackmailed. I will not have a gun held to my head.
They essentially put a gun to our head.
It's like the kid taking his football and going home. He spat the dummy.
Malcolm Turnbull's adopting the same tactics that people in the construction industry, he says, are using. That is bullying tactics.
Come off it. Turnbull's nothing like the construction unions. They would never call anyone back to work unexpectedly. Most of the crossbenchers are against the bill, but there is one way it could succeed.
It would also require key crossbenchers to go back completely on what they've been saying in the past. Those senators would really be trading what were their stated principles up until now for their job survival.
Turnbull wants them to sacrifice everything they believe in just so they can stay in power, or as it's known in Canberra, pulling a Turnbull. But 101 days out from a possible election, the PM is still struggling to explain what has changed since he toppled Tony Abbott.
What was the point of that? Because there's been very little policy change.
Let me run through a few. Firstly, we dealt with Senate voting reform. That was not on the agenda and it's done. It's been voted in and done. Secondly, we have a cities policy.
A cities policy? Yeah, Turnbull's clearly in the pocket of those mum and dad crane operators. The key message is that Turnbull is different to Abbott. Thankfully, Tony Abbott just happened to be in the area when Paul Murray was taping that night, so he popped in for a casual interview via satellite from London.
The Turnbull government is seeking election fundamentally on the record of the Abbott government. The Turnbull government is running on the Abbott government's record. Fundamentally, the Turnbull government is seeking election on the record of the Abbott government.
Spoken by T. Abbott for the Labor Party, Canberra. But if we learnt one thing this week, it is that uncivil language will not be tolerated.
There's very little difference. So then what was the point of knifing Tony Abbott?
Well, I don't want to buy into those sort of unpleasant metaphors.
But it is something that people have been... No, it is something that people have been discussing in policy sense.
Can I just say, we shouldn't be using violent metaphors like that.
OK.
That's right. No, it's absolutely right. We need to raise the tone. Show us how it's done, Ross Cameron.
I regard Glenn Lazarus as an abject failure as a politician. I regard him as an emasculated lump of lard.
Charming.